Okay, so this unit was chapter 11, which was chemical reactions. And practically for our worksheets that we got, which we got two of them that we did in class together, and they were all balancing chemical reactions and explaining how to get them set equal and what all the chemicals, the abbreviations were. So we had to write them all out, which took time. And we went over those in class, and then we had to do a worksheet on those on our own, which some were tricky, but pretty much self-explanatory. So before we could do all this, we had to learn exactly what a chemical reaction was and how we could equal it out. So we learned how to write chemical reactions one day during class. And to write a word equation, you write the names of the reactants on the left, and then you use an arrow to separate the reactants, and you write the other reactants on the right, which would be easier if I could show you, but yeah. So you use the arrow because then it'll separate the reactants, and then it's easier to problem solve. So with the chemical equations, after you've done that, there's something called a skeleton equation. And that is a chemical reaction that does not indicate the relative amounts of the reactants and products. So when writing the formulas of the reactants, on the part on the left, you add the yield sign, which is the arrow, and the formulas of the products are then to its right. So say you have like Fe plus oxygen or O2, and you write arrow, and you have Fe2, oxygen 3, and you have to equal them out, which you have to put stuff on both sides and then go from there. So after that, then we learned how to balance the chemical equations. So you set them up in that order, and after you set them up, then you go from there. You have your reactants on one side and your products, and then you have your coefficients, which will lead you to your balanced equation. And to write a balanced chemical equation, you first write the skeleton equation, which we just talked about. Then after that, use those coefficients to balance the equation so that it obeys the law of conservation of mass, because it can't be unequal, and so you can't just leave it how it is. You have to equal them out yourself, which takes knowledge on how to do it. So you have your reactants and your products, and we probably took 2 days on this, and there are certain rules that we had to follow for writing and balancing these equations. So we all learned those, which are pretty good to keep in mind. And after that section, we go to classifying the reactions, which we just worked with, and we did experiments over those. And the 5 general types of reactions are combination, decomposition, single replacement, double replacement, and combustion, which we learned all of those, and we did 2 other labs that we had to do that had to deal with that. And as we know, not all chemical reactions fit uniquely into only one category, which is why we have these 5 different ones to fit into. So when we do that, we work with the combination reactants, which helps us define the chemical change in which 2 or more substances react to form a single new substance, which is what we found out when we did the acid, and we had to put the thermometer in there, and we had to tell when the heat went up and down and whatnot. So then we learned all about the decomposition reaction, and then the single replacement action, and that was just a series of labs that we had to work with. And my favorite was probably the thermometer one, where we put the vinegar in with the acid, and we just mix the baking soda acid, and we just mix them all together, and then it caused chemical reaction right away, which caused bubbling. We put the thermometer in there, temperature went up, recorded it, yada yada yada. And so after that, then we were complete with that, and we had to do one with magnesium in it and record the same thing. And that pretty much sums up what we learned. We did a lot with the chemical reactions and equaling and balancing them out. That was probably the main part of this unit. And what I learned, what was really important. And so yeah, that's pretty much what we did this time. We still have to do our art project, but